The last thing that came out of my mouth before I died was not a plea for forgiveness. It was a curse spat in the face of my own mother. I was driving at 120 kilometers per hour on a dark mountain road, with the windshield wipers on full, trying to beat the storm. But the sound of the rain did not drown out the voice of Donna, Lords on the car's speakerphone. She was crying. She just wanted 50 rials for her blood pressure medication. I had just spent 4 times that amount at a cheap motel with a woman who didn't even care whether I would make it home alive. The sweet, cheap perfume of my mistress was still soaked into the passenger seat, mixed with my cold sweat. "Stop calling me, you infernal old woman," I shouted, gripping the steering wheel with my left hand and gesturing violently with my right. The same hand I had raised against her so many times. "The money is mine. Figure it out." That was the moment. The high beams of a truck invaded my cabin like an X-ray. I had no time to brake. I felt the impact first in my teeth, which cracked under the force of the collision, and then the sound of metal tearing through flesh. The car spun in the air. I remember thinking in a ridiculous fraction of a second that my wife would discover the affair because she would find the other woman's earring on the floor mat of the wrecked car. Then silence. There was no white light. There was no peace. There were no deceased relatives smiling. I opened my eyes and I was not in a hospital bed. The ground I was lying on was hot, a black, viscous mud that pulsed as if it had veins. The stench was unbearable, a mix of sulfur, sewage, and burnt hair. I tried to get up, but my body weighed tons. That was when the pain began, not in my chest, where the steering wheel had struck. The pain came focused, sharp, and terrifying in my right hand. The hand that denied help. The hand that struck. I looked at it and screamed without sound. The skin was intact, but it felt as if someone were pouring molten lead into my bones. I was no longer on the mountain road. I had gone down. I got up with difficulty, stumbling through that mud that seemed to try to swallow me by the ankles. I looked around, and what I saw chilled my blood more than death itself. There was no fire crackling in every corner like in the drawings. It was a grey, oppressive valley, covered by a fog that smelled of ancient mold. The worst part was not the landscape, but what stood at its center, a distorted, rotten version of my own house. The windows looked like empty eyes, and the walls bled a dark liquid. I tried to run away, but my feet dragged me involuntarily toward that door. As I walked, shadows began to detach themselves from the ground. They had no horns or pitchforks. They had the shape of my lies. Tall, faceless figures surrounded me. They did not scream. They whispered in my own voice. It was a cursed choir repeating everything I had said to my wife over the last 10 years. "You're crazy, woman. I was working late. Stop being paranoid. The problem is you. You're frigid." Each sentence struck my chest like a physical sledgehammer. I dropped to my knees. Those psychological demons spat on me, and the spit burned like acid. I saw the scene from last week projected in the fog before me. Me coming home smelling like the other woman, kissing my daughter's forehead, and lying while looking her straight in the eyes. Shame in that place was not a feeling. It was a 1,000-kilo weight. My back cracked under the pressure. I wanted to be blind, I wanted to be deaf, but in that place, the senses are amplified, so you don't miss a single detail of your own filth. The psychological torture was only the entrance. The main course was served when a tall figure, covered in rags that looked like they were made of dried human skin, emerged from inside that distorted house. It had no eyes, only black holes that sucked in what little light there was. It walked toward me and, with a strength that could crush steel, grabbed my right wrist. The moment the cold fingers of that thing touched my skin, my hand ignited. There were no yellow or red flames. The fire was invisible, but I could see smoke rising from my pores. The pain was indescribable. It felt like millions of incandescent needles piercing the marrow of my fingers, climbing up my arm to my shoulder. I howled, but the sound died in my dry throat. "Look!" the entity commanded. Its voice was the sound of dirt falling onto a coffin. The air in front of me rippled and turned into a giant, grotesque screen. I was forced to watch. I saw my mother's kitchen with the grimy tiles I had never offered to clean. I saw myself 2 years younger, drunk and violent. I saw my hand rising. I saw the fear in the eyes of that small woman who had washed my diapers. When my hand on the screen struck her face, I did not feel the impact in my hand. I felt it on my face. Hell has a cruel law of reciprocity. The slap I gave her cracked across my face with the force of a sledgehammer, breaking my spiritual jaw. I fell, spat blood, and tried to close my eyes, but my eyelids were forced open. The scene repeated itself. The shove that made her fall onto the couch. The day I threw away the plate of food she had made. With every act of violence projected, I suffered twice the pain I had caused. I was, at the same time, executioner and victim, trapped in an infinite cycle of aggression and suffering, while my right hand continued to cook from the inside out. Still writhing on the ground with my jaw dislocated, I smelled something that did not belong in that rotten place. It was her perfume, sweet, cloying, the same smell that was in my car before I died. I raised my head, and there she was, my mistress, standing a few meters away. For a second, my treacherous heart felt relief. She was beautiful, wearing the red lingerie I had bought with the money I took from my household's electric bill. I extended my burned hand toward her, begging for help. She smiled, but when she opened her mouth, no words of love came out. Black worms poured out, falling to the ground like cascades of sludge. The skin on her face began to melt like hot wax. Her hair fell out in clumps, revealing a cracked skull. The beauty for which I destroyed my marriage was only a mask for death. The skeletal figure pointed a bony finger at a new projection in the fog. I saw my wife Anna sitting on the kitchen floor, crying with the bills in her hands. I saw my children opening the refrigerator and finding only water. "You traded gold for trash," the thing wearing my mistress's face screamed, its voice like glass being chewed. "You left them hungry to feed me. Now you eat." The ground opened before me and a stone table emerged. On top of it were plates full of smoking ashes, live embers, and chunks of rotten meat. Smaller demons grabbed me by the hair and forced my head against the table. "Eat the fruit of your betrayal," they bellowed. I tried to keep my mouth shut, but they used iron hooks to pry my lips open. I was forced to swallow. The embers went down, burning my esophagus, tearing everything apart inside, while the skull of my mistress laughed hysterically, mocking my eternal stupidity. After the banquet of ashes, the ground finally gave way. I felt cold claws grab my ankles and start pulling me down, into an even denser darkness where the heat was suffocating. I knew by instinct that I was being taken to the second level, a place from which there would be no return, no memory, only liquid pain. I had already given up. I deserved to be there. I was a monster. But then something impossible happened. A sound cut through the heavy atmosphere of hell like a thunderbolt made of light. It was not a battle cry, nor the sound of heavenly trumpets. It was a whisper, a trembling, tearful whisper from a voice I knew better than my own. "Lord, my God, he is my son." Those words entered that cursed place like shockwaves. The claws holding me trembled and let go for a second. The demons mocking me recoiled, covering their ears, screaming as if they were being burned by acid. I looked up toward the fissure from which I had fallen. There, in the world of the living, in the physical world, my body was intubated in an ICU, technically dead or in a deep coma. And beside that broken body, there she was, the woman I had beaten, the woman I had denied 50 reais. Donna Lourdes was on her knees on the cold hospital floor, holding my hand, the same hand I had used to hurt her. Her prayer was not just. By logic, she should have been asking for justice, for revenge. But a mother's love is the only thing on earth that resembles the love of God. It is irrational. It is unbreakable. Don't take him now, Father. Don't let him go without salvation. I forgive him. I forgive everything. Bring him back. Each I forgive. She spoke up there, fell on me down here like cool rain on dry land. The ground of hell trembled. That simple prayer created a rope ladder made of mercy, swaying before me, offering me a chance I did not deserve. The ladder of mercy was there, but the demons were not going to let me go without a fight. When I tried to reach the light of my mother's prayer, the shadows became solid. Black viscous hands grabbed my neck, covered my mouth, and pulled my hair. They screamed in unison, a cacophony of hatred. "You are ours. You hit her. You cheated." There is no forgiveness for one who tramples the blood of his own family. I felt the weight of hell's justice. They were right. I deserved to stay. But my mother's voice kept echoing, "Jesus, bring him back." That name. The name I had only used as a curse on earth. I needed to say that name. But my throat was full of ashes and mud. I fought, not with physical strength, but with a desperation of the soul. I repented, not because it hurt, but because I finally saw the size of my evil. I saw my mother's love and understood the love of God. With my lungs burning, I forced the air out, expelling the dirt from my mouth, and screamed with everything that remained of my spirit, "Jesus!" The sound exploded like a nuclear bomb in that valley of shadows. The demons holding me were hurled away, burned by the authority of that name. I felt a violent tug in my navel, as if a crane hook had snagged me. I was ripped from the ground, rising at a dizzying speed, passing through layers of darkness, piercing the stone ceiling, leaving the smell of sulfur behind, toward the painful light of life. Air flooded my lungs with the violence of a stab wound. The rhythmic beep of machines was the first sound I heard, replacing the screams of the damned. I opened my eyes. The white light of the ICU burned my retinas. I tried to move, and the pain came instantly, brutal, localized. My right hand, it was bandaged, suspended, full of metal pins. The doctor later said it was a complex open fracture, that the steering wheel had crushed the bones on impact. But I knew the truth. The burn I felt inside was not from the accident. It was the mark of the fire. It was the eternal reminder of where that hand had been. I looked to the side. My mother was asleep in an uncomfortable chair, holding my left hand. She looked 10 years older. My wife was not there. She discovered everything. The earring, the motel, the messages. She took the children and left, and I don't blame her. I lost my marriage. I lost my house. I lost my car. I lost my reputation. But when my mother opened her eyes and smiled, crying when she saw that I had returned, I knew I had gained the only thing that matters. I gained a second chance to not be a monster. Today, when I look at my right hand, full of scars and never fully recovered movement, I don't feel anger. I feel gratitude. It is my memorial. It reminds me that hell is real, that sin has a price, but that a mother's prayer moves the hand of God, even at the bottom of the abyss. Don't play with your life. Don't play with your family, because the devil does not play at torturing. I went there, I saw it, and by mercy I came back to warn you.